Robin and Batman issue 1, Jeff Lemire writing, Dustin Wynn on the art, and I didn't actually realize this was oversized when I started it.
I didn't either because I got this digitally, and so you don't have the feel of it,
the thickness.
Nah.
What's funny is I didn't even realize really until I finished it and then checked. I was like, oh shit, that was 40 pages, and which is a compliment because it flowed so quick that I never felt it.
The only reason I felt it is because I was trying to read it on a break and didn't realize it was oversized. So I had allowed myself time to read. And as I was getting done with it, as my break was coming to an end, I was like, how much more do I have to go? And I was still only on like page 30. So I had to come back to it. But again, that's not the quality. I wasn't like, oh, when is this going to be done? Because it does a lot of fun stuff that I was, to be honest, like I like Lemire a lot and I like Wynn a lot. They're a good team. I don't know how many more Robin origin kind of stories I need. It's almost up there with Batman Origins. However, this team, I think, judging from how this ended, I think they have a unique take on Dick Grayson that I definitely can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, what's interesting about this, so it's from Robin's perspective more than Batman's, and it's very much a Dick Grayson who's just training to be Robin, has just signed up to be Robin in the months following the death of his parents. And what's interesting about this is that this very much wants to explore the psychology of what it's like for him being indoctrinated into Batman's world and what it's like for him trying to fit into it and his own personal journey of like, how do I become like him? Do I want to become like him? And ultimately, it seems like part of the point of this is the idea that he's going to have to be himself rather than, the next Bruce, right? And that's and that's a common theme that we hear talked about a lot when it comes to the adult version of Dick, is that he didn't grow up to be the next Batman. Even if he puts on the kill, he's his own version of Batman. But the important part is that he is him. And that's something that even Bruce himself will constantly say, I didn't, take Dick in to be the next me. I took him in to be better than me. So,
So, yeah, so that's what I always like too, is that, that he doesn't want to be the next Bruce because, that's not who Dick Grayson is, right? That they have processed their trauma differently with Bruce versus with Dick. And so this whole thread of this one, like him not wanting to be Batboy and then ultimately making the decision to do the reverse colors, right? Like I'm not going to wear dark and hide in the shadow, or wear dark colors, hide in the shadows. I'm going to be bright and, the red and the yellow and the green. And just the whole reason behind that is almost not out of spite, but to be his own person. Like from the, young mind of Dick Grayson, it seems like it's kind of out of spite. But
it kind of is, but
you can tell where it is.
It kind of is because he is a kid, but it's like this challenging your parental figure kind of thing. Batman's limiting him, telling him that he's not ready, giving him into trouble, and he wants to sort of lash out and rebel. So he kind of, part of that rebellion for him is to go with the bright colors. So, but anyway, to work through the book though, so the story starts with him. He's actually out on a mission and he's beating up some thugs, some guys that are robbing a truck. And he's wearing like an all black suit. It's not like a full fledged bat suit. It's like a hoodie with a belt. It's not, it's like a makeshift training outfit. And Batman's on the comms, like telling him instructions, and he's saying that he's not paying enough attention. He's not watching his surroundings. To quote Batman Begins, never learn to watch your surroundings. But Dick kind of like shows that he does have some skill. He does take down most of the bad guys. But he misses one, right? When Batman shows up and Dick's been a little bit cocky and says, "See, I told you I had it under control." Batman throws a batarang and like hits the guy behind him. And all this art, of course, Dustin Wynn, super moody, with the watercolors and
the watercolors match Gotham in a way that they shouldn't, right? Because like we're seeing Gotham with the dark, heavy lines, but just the watercolors work, and he's been doing Batman work forever. At this point, like I can't remember not seeing Dustin Wynn like Batman pieces.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where just a simple, because they tend to be very monotone in color, right? More or less. Whereas a lot of this first scene is just all kind of whites, blues, and grays. But then you get to the car ride home where they're sitting in awkward silence because Dick's feeling like he's in trouble. Bruce is mad at him. and but you just have this bathing red light, and it kind of mimics the idea of street light, coming through the window, but it has this tone on it the entire time. But yeah, they get back, and like Alfred and Bruce disagree with how to deal with Dick, and it's very interesting because Bruce is arguing that Dick, he's still acting like a child. He's having temper tantrums when he should be acting like a soldier. And because if I don't, if I don't train him properly, if I don't get him to do this right, I'm going to be bringing home a dead child. And Alfred, with a very on point, catty response, although with a lot of meaning behind this one, says, "No, you'd rather bring home a dead soldier," which is a very interesting. It's a layered point to make because you kind of get the meaning behind it. That he's saying that not so much that at least if he dies he'll still be himself. It's more that he's making the point that him changing who he is to fit into Bruce's mold.
You rather have a dead soldier. You rather have him come home dead but well trained than let him be himself. That the one thing that stood out to me at first was the voice here with Bruce and Alfred, who I feel like Alfred can say sassy things because that's Bruce's dad, right? Like, so here when he stops him, when he goes, he's acting like a child, and Alfred goes, "Well, if I may, sir," and he goes, "No, you may not," or along those lines. It didn't ring true to me, but then later, it keeps going, where Alfred kind of calls him out. Still, Alfred still gets his word in, but just that initial tone there.
You get the feeling that bringing Dick into the fold has kind of thrown this, not wrench,
dynamic
but
off.
This dynamic's a little bit different because now Alfred's kind of judging Bruce a little bit for what he's doing, and also the idea that, like, there's a line, I can't remember what the exact line is, I'd have to find it, but there's a line that made me sort of, like, Alfred says that kind of points out that, it talks about raising Bruce and how Bruce would only let him like help with his mission, but everything else he would like shut Alfred off from, and he's kind of telling him to do the same with Dick. And Alfred makes a comment about how, "Oh, that seems to be all I am ever allowed to do." Is that? And it was kind of this little pointed moment again of like pointing out like, you're trying to make me only deal with Dick in the same way that you let me deal with you, and pointing out those similarities. And we cut to Dick in school, and he's yawning, and there's a lot of stuff like him in his journal, and his narration talks a lot about how he's kind of like, he thought he'd be going into like some sort of fantasy where he's with a knight and a hero, and it's actually more of a nightmare, and he's he's mad in school, he's thinking of his parents, and he's thinking about how, well, no, he needs his own name, he needs his own outfit. There's even a joke here about having a dark name like Nighthawk or Nightwing, which I'll be honest, I could have probably done without the Nightwing name drop. Yeah,
it's a little bit like him. I kind of do like it because it shows that he does have this idea from the beginning. He doesn't want, like, unlike this, where we always talk about the difference between like Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, is like Dick is always a reluctant Batman, right? When he's had to wear the cowl, it's not because he wants to. He feels like he has to. First of all, I feel like that Tim very much wants to take that mantle. And here, I think this shows too that like he doesn't want to be Bat. He wants to be his own. Like even thinking of names that aren't even close to Bat, right?
Yeah, he
like,
wants to be something
to get away from that.
Completely different. Yeah. And the other thing here as well is he talks in his narration about how, like, he starts thinking about his parents and what happened to them when he's in a normal part of life, when he's in school, when he's doing normal human things day to day. Like the nightmare, the being the Batman sidekick and the mission. It's almost like a really understandable coping mechanism because if nothing else, it's a distraction from like thinking about and accepting what his life actually is and what he's went through. So I think the book's done a good job of like getting into the psychology of not only just being indoctrinated into what Batman's doing, but how Dick himself is letting it happen because it is actually helping him cope with like what's happened to him recently. And that's because one of the more vulnerable moments that I really liked is that when he's coming out of school and he sees the car and he's like, "Oh, if Bruce is here to pick me up, that means we're probably doing some early training," and it means he's like motivated, it means he's thinking about me. And then when he sees Alfred, he's disappointed, and Alfred even picks up on this, but the art here when he's disappointed is really good because like it's the same panel basically of his face looking happy and then looking sad after he sees Alfred at the bottom of the page. And I love how it mirrors the same. It's almost the exact same 4 panels as when Batman's driving him home in the Batmobile earlier on, where it's more talky, of course, because Alfred's willing to talk. So it's contrasting Bruce and Alfred quite nicely, but it's it's not bathed in red like it was with Batman, but it's very similar storytelling in that it's these 4 horizontal panels, and it's just really. Alfred's head's the exact same in every one. He could have just copied his work if he wanted to. It's just Dick's head that's moving around and like thinking and commenting and things. So really neat. But like he has a little tantrum when he gets back because Alfred suggests, oh, maybe in a few years you can like take up this fight, but you could focus on your studies now. So he actually goes and makes his own outfit. He makeshifts his own Robin outfit and goes out to prove himself. I love the transition here because he ends his narration with this is going to really piss him off, and then it cuts to Batman. And this is the first time we even hear Batman's narration in the whole book. And he just says, this really pisses me off. He's not talking about Robin, but it's funny. But by the way, that panel of him, swinging through the city might be the most gorgeous. Yes, it's beautiful. The watercolors of the buildings, it just looks really nice. But basically, he's investigating the thieves from before. He had Gordon let them out because he suspected there was something going on that he couldn't figure out, because they were stealing from meat trucks like multiple times. It's like there's something fishy here. Yeah,
they weren't robbing meat; they were robbing food. It felt like they were trying to, which that set off I was like, oh, okay, I think I know where this is going. They're jumping down into the sewers.
So and it teases the Robin outfit because we see the green boots before we get the full reveal of him in the sewer. And it's this, makeshift outfit that he's made. And one of the things I really liked is that the colors of his costume really pop because the backgrounds are very monotone. Sometimes they've got a splash of color, but it'll all be one color more or less. Whereas Robin's bright colors of the red, the green, the yellow all really stick out against the muted watercolors in the background. And Dick runs into Killer Croc. We get a full page of it, and it shows you how big Killer Croc is compared to Dick. Yep. He just towers over him. And he just kind of says hello. Dick tries to fight him. A couple of nice pages here with the fight. Batman obviously shows up and is able to get Dick away. Is pissed at him, of course. Yells at him.
Well, yeah, he ends up getting a bunch of broken ribs for his troubles.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to save Dick and threw him off his game, which I also like, too, that Dick being there when he didn't think he would does throw Bruce enough off that he gets hurt. And this is kind of why it also reinforces why Dick needs to train more, right? Like him going off and doing his own thing does have consequences.
Because that's the other thing they mention is that Dick kind of like thinks to himself, maybe this is a test to show my independence if I go and do something. Yeah. And when they get back to the Batcave after this, he's like, because Batman calls his costume ridiculous, and he's like, it's not ridiculous, it's my family's, and he goes, I know it was, that's why I made this, and he shows him the Robin costume that he made, which is the exact same color scheme, it's got the R, but Dick realizes that he's been looking at his journal, and that's why he knows how to make this, and he gets pissed. He feels that he has no privacy. Batman's like, oh, we can't keep any secrets, blah 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 blah, and it's like Dick's like, no, this was meant to be mine, just mine, like
but there is a right to privacy story here.
Absolutely, but it's also kind of sweet though, right? Like the Batman had this made. Like I felt like it was like, as far as fatherhood moments for Batman goes, this was like, oh man, he made him a Robin outfit.
Right, but in doing it in a very Batman way, where he was like, I'm going to read through his journal, which is a big no-no, and he doesn't understand because he's not a parental figure yet. He's still learning. Like Dick is still learning to be Dick Grayson, whereas Bruce has to remember how to be Bruce Wayne and not Batman.
I think that story is obviously Dick being himself, but it's also Batman learning to let him be himself. Right. This is in a way that maybe I've not quite seen before. I don't think. I feel like this is really trying to tackle how their relationship actually forms at this early stage in their time together. So that's really smart. But we get that scene afterwards as Robin kind of repeats the opening narration of the book. We see Killer Croc in a hat and coat, no less.
I love it.
Venture up to what's left of Haley's circus and sort of like wanders around. And we get this like flashback. Basically, he recognized Dick because he used to like be like a sideshow attraction at the circus. He's in the water, and he looks up at the Flying Graysons poster because he recognized the colors more than anything, probably.
And when you go back and revisit that thing, that scene with Croc when he catches Robin, he goes, "Hey, kid," right? And then he goes, "Hey, where'd you get those colors from?" Now, this might have been a blind spot, but tying Killer Croc to Haley Circus, I don't know if that's been done, but it's a pretty genius move.
Yeah, it might be new. It might be something that's pulling on a bit of history, but I actually kind of like it.
Yep. And it makes, I mean, this is where I realize I have a type for Batman villains where I like the kind of sympathetic ones more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I love Ivy and Two-Face and Croc even. Then seeing him in the trench coat and hat, I was like, oh, okay, he's a monster. I like monsters. But then seeing him poke out as the Crocodile Boy and like looking at the Graysons and like there's a sense of longing there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. Just the sympathetic monster, you know, gets me. And Lemire does that very well.
Yeah. I totally dig this. At least on its own, I do think, you know, and obviously this is kind of out of continuity. Although, I mean, much like a lot of Batman individual books, you can kind of like headcanon them into like being part of the overall, you know, tapestry if you want to. Because technically, Long Halloween's not in continuity, but we kind of treat it like it is in a lot of ways. But in the grand scheme of things, I would say that, you know, we've already turned Man-Bat and Clayface sympathetic. I don't know if we necessarily like. I kind of like the idea of one of the monstrous Batman villains just remaining monstrous, and Killer Croc can be a pretty scary dude in the sewers if they treat him that way.
But if you can keep him to, you know, like he's more friendly when it comes to Dick because of the tie to the circus. You know, almost like he has a sense of family. I think that works. Just, you know, he doesn't always have to.
It totally does on its own. I'm just saying that I don't want Clayface, Killer Croc, and Man-Bat to all be sympathetic in the same world.
I mean, that's how we get a new Gotham City Monsters book, Pete. You know, it's right there.
I think it's too much of too many villains becoming more anti-heroes, but on its own, I love it.
This was a thing that I was hinting at earlier that I love. Like, of course, he was a circus sideshow with the way that he looks, and you know the fact that he was having his goons rob stuff for food, probably for himself, right? Like he's got to eat to keep up that size,
which is more sympathetic than normal because it means he's not eating people. He's, you know,
exactly, and that's the thing with me that I was thinking of is like he's not out there, you know, murking guys. He's you know, sure he's robbing food trucks, but you know those are insured. So, yeah. But just this whole sequence with it's all done in grays, and the, you know, the circus is kind of lit up with the Robin colors. It's a lot of yellows and reds, which are kind of those are the Flying Grayson colors. So, it really pops.
I think, you know, the story beats here. The idea that if the bright colors of Robin can lighten up Killer Croc and make him sympathetic, then maybe it can do the same for Batman. Like, you know, obviously Batman's not as, you know, villainous as Killer Croc, but and then the themes of the story, the idea that this will lighten up Batman a little bit ultimately if he lets Robin change him just a touch. You know, so there's a sweet story in here as well that I can definitely see us getting to by the end of the part 3. But I dug this a lot. I mean, I don't know if that was clear from the conversation, but this was a very well written book. It was very easy to read.
Shocking coming from Jeff Lemire. Right?
I know. This is going to be such an easy recommendation to like go along with your standalone Bat books that kind of fill in the early like career parts of various characters. You go, yeah. But it doesn't quite fit with say a Robin Year One or other stories, but you can slot it in there as one of the versions of the Robin early days stuff to add to your Bat sort of shelf. So really, really solid. I felt it. The art's obviously wonderful. Very distinct tone. And Dustin Win's an artist that I wouldn't want on like, you know, a lot of regular comics necessarily, but for the creator-owned stuff that he does with other people and for like standalone stories like this, it works beautifully. Really specific tone that you get and vibe from his art.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. What are you giving it? Robin and Batman?
I'm giving this an 8.5.
Yeah, I want to go as high as a 9. I think the I think the psychology and the relationship between Bruce and Dick, and like Dick dealing with how Bruce is treating him, but also realizing that Bruce is making mistakes and has to learn stuff too. I think that's been handled really well, and there's a lot of good character work happening here.